All right, so here's the graphing portion. You want to be able to identify which graph it is from all the way to the left. So that's our first step, is to narrow it down to one of those choices there. And then what you want to use or do is to follow the steps until you've matched it. So first you pick out from here. Okay. So you want to pick out which of these it is. And once you've figured out that, then you want to follow these steps. And once you have those steps done, you should be able to pick which one. And maybe you only need to do A. Maybe you need to do A and B. Maybe you need to do A, B, and C. You do it until you have the results you want. So this is like number 31. Okay. It's y equals 1/4 x plus 2. So my first thing is I want to figure out which one does it match from over here, okay, from this area here. Okay. And I'm going to actually do these in order. But if you didn't know, that one matches the line because nothing's happening to the x. It's not being squared. It's not square root. It's an absolute value. There's not two of them. It's not on the bottom. So that's just a good old-fashioned y equals mx plus b. So now that I know that it's a line, okay, my first question, is it a positive or a negative line? That's always going to be answered in the front here. Well, there's no negative there, so I know that this is a negative. So I know that that's a negative, okay? Or excuse me, that's a positive because there's nothing there. So I know that I have this line and it's going up because it's positive. So there's my A. So now you could go through and narrow it down. Does it look like that? Does it look like, which one does that look like? Really, just cross out the ones you know it's not. Question B, does it have a vertex? The question, this one, the answer is no. Doesn't have a vertex, okay? Part A, we should have said it's a positive, okay? Part C, what's the y-intercept? So that's asking us to plug in 0 for x. So then y equals 1/4 times 0 plus 2, and that gives me 2. So now I know that on my y, at 2, that's where that's hitting. Okay. Then you can answer the question of what's my x-intercept? X-intercept means setting this equation equal to 0. When does that happen? Okay. So I go 1/4 x minus 2 both sides, and then to get rid of a 1/4, I'm going to times by, or excuse me, I can divide by 1/4, and that'll give me x equals -8. So now I know that point and that point, and that should be enough to determine what the graph is. Okay. So answering A, B, C, and D is going to always give you enough. Some of you might use slope here, which is fine. So you know it goes up 1/4, up 1/4. Okay, my drawing's not very good, but essentially that's what's going on. Okay. So now next one. This one's going to be like 32. First thing I notice is that it's a square, okay? And squares are u's. So there's my first thing. So I notice that it's a u. Is it a positive or is it a negative? Well, right up here, this is always where it's going to tell me. That tells me that it's a positive. So that means it should be up, okay, which it is. Next question, B. Does it have a vertex? The answer is yes. The vertex is always right here. -3, +2. So right there, I can draw a graph in a -3, +2. That's out right there. It's the bottom of my graph. And then if that's not enough, I can go to C. And usually that's enough. Okay. C says, what's our y-intercept? So I plug in 0. Y equals 0 plus 3 squared plus 2. So if I type that in the calculator, it gives me 11. Okay. So my drawing's not very good here. I'm going to go ahead and delete that so that I can make a better drawing. I know that that's my vertex, but now I know that this goes through 11 on my y-intercept. Okay, so it's going to be more like this. X-intercept would be to figure out when does this thing equal 0. Okay. Now, we don't really know how to do that. We haven't really talked. Oh, actually, I take it back. We can do this. X plus 3 squared plus 2. When does that equal 0? Subtract 2. -2. Square root both sides. X plus 3 equals square root of -2. What is the square root of -2? Well, that's going to give me an I, which tells me that it doesn't work. Okay, which makes sense up here because if you look at our graph, it doesn't hit our x-axis. Okay. Now, I'm pretty sure that we would have had it, that would have gotten us there. All right. So number 33. Again, you stop with these as soon as you know which one it is. You minus or you cross out the ones you know it's not and figure out what's left. So first step, it's to the third power. Okay, so that's important. That's the third power. So that means that it's got to be C over here. It's got to be that one. Okay. Well, if it's that one, so I know I have this. Oop. I drew that back. Well, that's fine. And then my first question, is it positive or is it negative? Well, right here there's a negative in front, and it's always in front of the parenthesis or right in front of the x. It's a negative, so that means it's flipped. Okay, so my bird needs to be flipped. Okay. Well, it might be easier just to rewrite it. Let's see. So it goes like this. So that narrows it down a little bit. That's the bad one. Okay. Part B says, let me just get rid of that. B says, does it have a vertex? The answer to the question is yes. The vertex is going to be 1, 2. Okay. So now I know that I can draw my graph here, and at 1, 2 is that vertex. And on this, the vertex is right there at that changing point. Okay. That point right there. My vertex back there. And then C, what's the y-intercept? Well, that means plug in 0 for x. So y equals negative, parentheses 0 minus 1 to the third plus 2. And that's going to give me that y equals 3. Okay. So my y-intercept, so my drawing's kind of bad here. I'm going to go ahead and make it a little nicer. So my drawing, my y-intercept is 3. That's where that's going to hit. So that means, and I know it's going down, so it should have been more like this. Okay. And then if that's not enough, again, I go to step T. What is the x-intercept? So when does this thing equal 0? So I'm going to go negative parenthesis x minus 1 plus 2. Subtract 2 is what I wanted to do first. So when I subtract 2, I get negative 2. And I'm going to divide by negative 1. Okay. So that gives me x minus 1 equals 2. And then I'm going to add 1. So I get my x-intercept equals 3. That's when I should hit my x. So if I make this a little longer, I know that that value is 3, and that'll be enough to match. So you can see we were going to do this step A, B, and C. A, B, C. A, B, C, D sometimes. Okay? All right. 34. If you're watching this video at home, I'm really glad. If you come up to me and you tell me, Mr. McConnell, the code word is elephant, then I will give you extra credit for watching this video. Okay? So that's a square root. So I look over here, and a square root is this kind of like half thing like this. Okay? And really, this is going to be the starting point, and there should be an arrow there. That's how that looks. Okay? So then my first question, is it positive or is it negative? Well, it's a negative. So I got to flip it. So really, that's not the right one. I need the graph, and I'll just get rid of that, actually. I want the graph to go like this. Okay. Part B says, does it have a vertex? The answer to that question is yes. The vertex here is 6, -8. Remember, just flip the sign of the first one. So now I know that this graph, that 6, -8, there's a point, and that's where that part of the graph is. Okay. And then the next thing, when I plug in 0, what do I get? So y-intercept is negative square root of 0 minus 6 minus 8, and that gives me a I of some sorts, or an error if you're using the right calculator. So that means none. And you can see up here, when do I hit the y-intercept? I don't. Okay, so none. And x-intercept, if I do the same thing, even just looking at this graph, I know that it's not going to hit this line based on how my graph looks. So I don't need to do that. So this should have been enough to solve this. All of these are essentially the same. Do the same thing over and over and over again. Okay? 35. Okay, what graph does this look? Well, it's got an absolute value, so I know right off the bat it's a V. Okay. Question A, is that positive or negative? It's positive. Okay, so it's up. Part B, does it have a vertex? Yes. It has a vertex, and that vertex is -5, -2. So right there, that tells me that I can go ahead and make a graph at -5, -2. Oh, put that in the wrong spot. -2. That this point right here is the bottom of the V. Okay. Then part C says, what is the y-intercept? So then all I have to do is plug in 0 here. I get y equals 0 plus 5 minus 2. So on these, there's no function on the calculator that does absolute value. So y equals 5 when I do that. What is the absolute value of 5? Well, if it's a positive 5, it just says positive. Okay. So there's my y-intercept. So if I go up here to my graph, my y is 3, is right there. So I should hit that point. So my original graph's a little off, so I'll get rid of that. And I'll go ahead and I'll draw a better version of it. So it's going through that vertex, and it's going up. If I still don't have an answer, then I can go to D. I can say, when does this equal 0? Well, I add 2, and then I have to split it. X plus 5 equals 2. X plus 5 equals -2. Subtract 5 here. X equals -3. Subtract 5 here. I get x equals -7. So that means these 2 points have just been identified as -7, -3, and that should be enough to pick out your graph. Okay. Again, you don't have to do all these steps because most of them will be done. You'll get through the third step and you'll throw away all the bad answers. You have one left. This is a advanced question. This is advanced for, this is a bonus, okay? Well, which graph have we not really used? Okay, the graphs we haven't used are the ones that go up and down, swirly graphs, okay? So what you need to realize is that's one of them. Question is, which one is it? Well, you've already narrowed it down, so you got a 25% chance of getting it right. And if you know that it's at least one of those, then you're in better shape than someone who won't try figuring this one out. And then if we follow our steps, then we should be able to if we follow our steps, then we should be able to narrow it down a little bit. Okay, so we know it's going to be one of these because that's the only kind we haven't really dealt with. And if I plug in 0, so is it positive or negative? I don't know what that means. Does it have a vertex? It doesn't have a vertex. So A, we're going to say question mark. I don't know. B, no. C, plug in 0. So if I plug in 2 sine of 0, what do I get? Okay, and on this problem, we're going to get 0. So I've narrowed it down that I know it's going to be one of these up and down ones where this is going to hit 0, okay, when I plug in 0. That's as much as I'm going to tell you, and I want you to use that to narrow it down. Okay. 37. P of x equals 4 1/2 raised to the x minus 5. So this one's a little different. We have to ask slightly different questions. Okay. But first of all, what type is it? Well, this is an F. Okay. It's either going to be this or it's going to be this. This is a growth. This is a decay. I know that this one here, because this is at less than 1, that this is a growth. Or excuse me, I did that wrong. Sorry. Decay. So growth is going to be a plus 1 raised to the x, and a decay is a fraction, is less than 1 to the x. Okay? So we're dealing with this one. So there's our first hint. Okay. So then I can ask myself, is it positive or negative? So A, so if I look up here, it's a positive. Okay. So it is a positive. So that means if this is my graph, then I'm not going to flip it. Okay. B, does it have a vertex? No, it doesn't. C, if I plug in 0, what do I get? Well, if I plug in 0, I get y equals 4 times 1/2 to the 0 minus 5. So that gives me, after I do the calculation, that it's negative 1. So right there up the bat, I know what my y's got to be. My y, which is here, it's got to be negative 1. Okay. So I don't really know. I'm going to get rid of this stuff. I don't need it anymore. I don't really know what this graph looks like or where these things fall, but I do know that this has to hit negative 1 somehow. Okay. Then the last thing I would ask you to do, or to figure this out, is where is this lowest, what's the lowest value? So this is kind of a new question. So for this one, you need to know what the low is. What is this low here? Okay, it's a question mark. Well, the low is, if you remember, always this number on the end. Okay, so there's our low. That's as low as we can get. So really, at negative 5, we have this kind of low value. It can't get lower than that. So that's where our low is. Now I know I don't need that question mark. Get out of here. Okay. So let me redraw this to make it a little bit better. I know that it goes down because of the decay. I know it has to hit negative 1, and I know that this is its low. So that's what that graph looks like. 38. F of x equals this one, we have to do the quadratic formula for the top. We have to do the quadratic formula for the bottom. We're gonna do these other rules, but we're gonna start with this. Okay. So if I do the top, x equals negative 6 plus or minus square root of 6 squared minus 4ac all over 2a calculator. Okay, 2. So negative 6 plus 2 divided by 2 is negative 2. And negative 4. So those are my tops. Okay? Those are my x-intercepts. Okay? So now I got to figure out my bottoms. So the bottom is going to be x equals negative 9 plus or minus square root 9 squared minus 4 AC. Square root of gives me 1. So I get, oh, that's not 2. I made a mistake. That should be a 1, right? So I get negative 8 divided, so negative 4 is one solution, and negative 5, okay? These are our bad numbers, okay? So we're going to take them another step, and instead of saying they're bad, they're going to have different things. This is going to be a whole, because it's just really bad. And this right here, oh, I did that wrong. That's a whole, sorry. This is a whole. And this right here is my asymptote. Okay. So the way that looks on a graph is that at x equals negative 2, I'm going to have a point, and it's going to hit. And at x equals negative 4, wherever that is, it's going to have a hole there. I don't know how the structure of this graph looks, but that's why it's going to be multiple choice. And at x equals negative 5, there's going to be an asymptote. Okay? Meaning that the two lines are going to kind of go towards that, and then they're going to miss. I can also calculate what my y-intercept is pretty easily by plugging in 0 for x. My y-intercept, if I plug in 0, I get 0 squared, sorry, this is small, 6 times 0 plus 8 over 0 squared. I'm just plugging this right back in the original. Calculate that out, and we get 2 over 5, 2/5. That's my y-intercept. Right here, it's going to hit at 2/5. So my graph is going to look something like this. And really, I'm going to know it based on my holes and my asymptotes and my intercept. It might not be like that. It might be flipped around, but we should be able to cross out the ones that it's not. Okay? So that one's definitely a little bit different. 39. Okay. So again, what type is this? Well, this is the third root, so that means it's going to be something like this. Okay? That's what a third root graph looks like. So that's what we start with. Is it a positive or a negative? It's a positive, so I don't flip it. I leave it alone. Okay? Part B, does it have a vertex? The answer is yes. It's negative 5, negative 3. That's our vertex. So right there, I can go ahead and I can graph negative 5, negative 3. And this point right here and this point are going to match up. Okay? Grab that. That's how that looks. Okay? Part C says, what is the y-intercept? So all I got to do to figure that out is plug in 0 for x. 0 plus 5. Let me give myself enough room. Minus 3. Get y equals 3. Third root of 5 minus 3. If I type that whole ugly thing in the calculator, it's going to give me an ugly decimal, but at least it'll narrow it down for me. So I get 2 point, I don't really need that, because I could type that right in, and I get 2.1299 jump. So there's my y-intercept. So I know that that should have hit my y right there. We'll call that 2.1299 ... So that's where that should hit. So I'm going to go ahead and delete that so I can draw a better one. So my graph should do something like this. Okay. And then if that's not enough, I can always do my step D, which is what's my x-intercept. So I say 3 third root of x plus 5 minus 3. When does that equal 0? Add 3. Divide by 3. And then I'm going to cube both sides. So there's my x-intercept. So really, that means this point right here is -4. My scale's a little bit off. It's a lot off, actually. But, you know, when we're matching, hopefully that'll make sense. Okay. Number 40, almost done. So this is going to be the double graph. There's my wife calling. Hello? Hey, I'm making a video. Bye. All right, so let's go ahead and graph this. So essentially it's two lines. I got to graph this one and this one. So you kind of have to do all the steps for both of them. Okay? So we know we have lines. So the first one I have, I'm going to go ahead and talk about that. We get a line. So, and let's go ahead and I'll make this y equals, I'll write it in red for us. Okay, so there's our line. Question A, is it positive or negative? Well, the x is positive. Question B, does it have a vertex? Lines don't have vertex. Question C, if I plug in 0, what do I get? Get -2. So there's my y-intercept. Okay, so let me move this for a second. My y-intercept is -2. So we're going to hit right there. Question, so that, I know there. Question D, if I set it equal to 0, what do I get? So that means I'm going to hit right here at +2 for my x. Okay, so there's my red line. So I'm going to move that, oh, that's not what I wanted to do. I'm going to move that down out of my way. So now I'm going to do my blue line. Same question. We have a line. Is it positive or negative? It's a negative, okay? So that means my line's going to go down. Does it have a vertex? No. If I plug in 0, what do I get? Four. Okay, so now I know that my y-intercept is 4. And I'm going to go ahead and find my x-intercept and then go from there. So what if I set this equal to 0? What does that do? -4 divided by -1/2. X equals 8. So for that other one, my x-intercept is 8, and my y-intercept is +4. My scale's a little off here, but that's okay. And I know it's a negative. So that's what that graph should look like. 41, the last one I'll do. Similar thing as the previous problem, except it's going to have a little bit of shading. I'm going to write the second one in red so it's a little clearer. A lot of you got used to using slope to graph these, okay? But you can use the same directions, okay? A, is it positive or negative? It's a negative, so that means my line's going down. I'm doing the blue one up here. B, I don't have vertexes. C, plug in 0. Get -1. So I know for my y, I'm going to be at -1. That's one of my points. And then D, I set it equal to 0. What do I get? I add 1 divided by -2. X equals -1/2. So that's my x-intercept. I'll just put it right there so it's a little easier. So then my graph for this one is going to go something like this. Now this one says less than or equal to. So I shade below. Okay? So you get out your pen or your pencil or something. And where are my pen options? Come on. There they go. It usually gives you options. There we go. So I want a highlighter. So I'm going to shade down here. Okay. Now I'm going to do the red one. So let me get rid of, get rid of this stuff because I need the space. You too. Come on. That's part of that. Okay. Let's erase that. So the red one, question A, is it a positive or negative? It's a negative, so it's going to also go down. Okay. It doesn't have a vertex. What's the y-intercept? So y equals, and we just treat this as an equal with this stuff. Y equals -4/3 times 0 plus 1. 1 here. So my y-axis is 1. That's where I'm going to hit there. And then D says, what's my, if I set this equal to 0, what happens? Okay, we'll get, sorry, room, x equals 3/4, positive. So that's my x-intercept is positive 3/4, which would be roughly here. This again is a negative, so it's going to go something like this. Okay. And shaded. Oh, I made a mistake though. I should have redo that because it's just less than. That means it's going to be dotted. Okay, and then it's shaded below. So if I get my highlighter back out. And this time I'll shade green. It's going to be here. And the answer is where they overlap. Now my drawing's not very good because what's going to happen, give myself a little more room, what's going to happen is we're going to get this dotted line and we're going to get this blue line and shaded below both of them. Okay? Well, where is below both of them? That answer is going to be right here. Okay. All right. So that's all of it. That's all the graphing. I'm not going to do any of these solving. I take that back. I'm going to do one of the last questions, the substitution. I think you should be able to do this. So the first one on that page, which is number 40, 2. All they're asking you to do is, here's the equation, okay? And how do you solve that if r equals 8? So you just go pi 8 squared. What does that equal? That's what this question's asking for. I go to my calculator. Okay, and the answer to this problem is 201. And I went 3 decimal places, or wherever that is, and we're done. That's it. And the rest of those are like that. I'm going to let you kind of struggle through those. If you have questions, let me know. And that should do it.